Hi everyone, welcome back to the Movie Reviewers 100. My name is Scott, also known as Cineram here on YouTube. I do the Thursday videos on this collaboration channel. We took the week off last week, but we're back now, and you might be seeing some changes to our format in the weeks to come. But for right now, this week's theme is old school sci-fi, and I decided to do a film that I read about a couple of years ago. But you know, that's piqued my curiosity, but then I never really got around to watching because it's, you know, a film from the 1950s, and there's new movies coming out every week on video, and keeping up with them is you know, not easy. If you're also dividing your time between old movies that you should have watched years ago, and of course television shows and internet and all that kind of stuff, you know, it's something that I just never got around to. I know we have a lot of UK viewers. A lot of the people who are on this channel are from the UK. So you are no doubt familiar with Empire magazine. Empire is a UK publication, a big, colorful, enthusiastic movie magazine. You can pick it up here in the States at like Barnes & Noble, typically. It's a good one, and they published an issue several years ago about the greatest science fiction movies in cinema history. They sort of took it chronologically. They started with the early stuff, like with Metropolis, Fritz Lang, all the way up to, you know, The Matrix in the late 90s, and, you know, whatever was in the first part of last decade when the magazine was published. I decided to check out Forbidden Planet because I read that it was partly inspired by a William Shakespeare play called The Tempest, which I've never seen or read, but from what I understand, there's a group of sailors that are shipwrecked on a mysterious uncharted island with a lot of wildlife, dangerous wildlife, but they find among the few sole human inhabitants a wizard who uses magic powers basically to tame the wildlife and keep it at bay. I'm not really sure how the story plays out, but that's the premise for it. And Forbidden Planet took sort of a similar premise, except it sets it in outer space. The movie came out in 1956. It was directed by Fred McLeod Wilcox, and of course, its big claim to fame, actor-wise, is Leslie Nielsen. One of Leslie Nielsen's early movies before he joined the Police Squad in the 80s, the television series, and then went on to star in the Naked Gun films and a couple of scary movies, and a couple of scary movies, and a few other comedies. He is sort of the deadpan, ultra-serious type of delivery that worked well for comedies like that. He plays the commander of an exploratory ship. They are traveling to a distant star called Altair. One of the planets was... there was an expedition earlier for a group of human scientists to sort of set up and study the planet. As it happens, it's the fourth planet from the star Altair, like Earth. They call it simply Altair 4. As they approach the planet, they hail it on the radio, and the guy who answers the call, his name is Dr. Morbius. They confirm him as a member of the initial expedition. But Dr. Morbius tells them not to land. He says, "We're fine here, we don't need any assistance, we're good. The best thing you can do is turn back and go home." It's like, "Doc, we've been traveling here for like an entire year now, you know, we're here to relieve you, that's our duty." He says, I'm telling you, you shouldn't land, you know, but they land anyway because that's their orders, and they visit Dr. Morbius, and he tells them that he's the only survivor of the original expedition, and that he and that there was some unseen, mysterious force that destroyed all the other members of the expedition except for himself. And he doesn't know what it is exactly, but since that has passed and all those people have been dead and buried, he's been living there peacefully and has prospered, actually. He's developed a number of inventions, including a robot called Robbie the Robot. It's very strong, also has this device built into its chest that can analyze a molecular substance, such as water or whiskey, for example, and then replicate it. The crew members of the second expedition, they're like, this is very curious. I wonder how this guy managed to create all this technology. And while they're there, they learn that Dr. Morbius has a daughter. As it turns out, he married one of the other crew members during the journey to Altair 4, and shortly after they landed, a lot of the crew members died, including his wife. Of course, his wife died of natural causes, apparently. But it's just him and his daughter left on this planet. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is 1956. They probably weren't able to mention the fact that he got, one of the women on the ship on their cruise there on the expedition pregnant, and asked the captain to marry them to save her reputation, and they couldn't really go there. Another place they couldn't go is once the crew members on the new expedition under Leslie Nielsen's command find out that there's a young girl there who's around 17, 18 years old. Their behavior immediately, their attention turns towards her, and some of them even start talking trash, like right from the get-go, about the other crew members. Oh, you don't want to find yourself alone with that guy. He's trouble. But me, I'm good. I'm a cool guy. I'll be fine with you. And it's just like, ugh, get away. But yeah, so there's this whole mystery surrounding why the Doctor was the only survivor. Why the weird, mysterious, invisible force, whatever it was that killed all the other crew members, left him alone, and will it come back? And so there's a number of mysteries here, and I don't want to get too much into spoilers for those of you who are curious in checking out the film for yourself. But eventually, Dr. Morbius tells them about the alien race that used to live on the planet thousands of years before they actually got there. The humans got there, and apparently they left some of their technology, which enabled him to create some advanced machinery that humans aren't capable of. But as it turns out, these race of beings, whom he calls the Krell, made great advances in technology, so far advanced that they might have brought about their own destruction. And so the question is, how does that relate to this invisible whatever it is that could kill the crew members if it returns? And there's a couple of funny sequences there involving, this being a film from the 1950s, it isn't exactly the most graceful of movies. There are scenes where guys are standing there, using laser guns, firing at things. But it's very clear that the actors are simply standing there holding their guns in place, and then the lasers are added afterwards. Of course they do that, but they don't even act like they're firing anything. It's a little silly looking. And the movie itself, I mean, the acting is pretty stiff, and the style of making films in the 50s and in earlier decades is very similar to a lot of films of that period. A lot of dissolved transitions between scenes. They're all very basically staged. I am aware, of course, that cameras were a lot bigger and heavier back in the 50s, in the early days of cinema, than they are now. Especially with everyone shooting, lightweight digital cameras now, red cameras and what have you. They're much easier to get into tight corners and move around a lot, whereas shots in the 50s had to be planned very carefully because, moving a heavy camera is a lot more difficult than moving a lightweight camera. So the style of the shooting and of the coverage is dictated largely by that. So I wouldn't necessarily, it's a classic, it's a classic science fiction movie, and I'm not really in a position to judge it against others because I haven't seen very many of them. And of course, as I said, the style isn't something that really appeals to me as much. There's classic movies that I do like that have a sense of style to them, I guess, at least as far as the acting and writing goes. But this isn't necessarily one of them. It's all very straightforward. So while I wouldn't recommend it, I would probably say check it out if you're interested in something, old school like that. Science fiction is a great way of dealing with sort of present-day issues metaphorically. I'm not sure if there's any particular themes in the Tempest that are reflected by the new film. Quite possibly. But over the years, science fiction has always been the kind of genre that allows you to sort of comment on present-day circumstances or issues by having them set in a completely unrealistic environment, or set them among aliens, or just, that kind of thing. So, it's undoubtedly good for some of that. I wouldn't say that I'm a connoisseur of the classic stuff. So I'm not terribly qualified to give an expert opinion on whether or not this is a well-done film or not. But it's certainly interesting, at least as far as the story goes. So that's it for now. As far as this review goes, I also wanted to give you a little update as to some of the stuff I've seen in the theater recently. I went to see Ruby Sparks and Take This Waltz. Take This Waltz has Michelle Williams and Seth Rogen in it. And Ruby Sparks has Paul Dano, and what's her name? Zoe Kazan. They're a real-life couple, and she wrote the screenplay, and then Jonathan Dayton and Valerie Faris, they directed the picture. They did Little Miss Sunshine about 5 years ago or so. I am pleased to say that having seen that film, it's now the best movie that I've seen so far this year, just ahead of John Carter. Also, who else is in it? Not Diane Keaton. Who am I thinking of? It's Antonio Banderas and Annette Bening, right? Antonio Banderas and Annette Bening play Paul Dano's parents. Yeah, really interesting movie. He's a writer, basically, who creates a fictional girl that he would like, and then she materializes out of thin air. And he ends up interacting with her and living with her as though she's a real person and not actually his creation. It kind of reminds me of Groundhog Day, actually, because in Groundhog Day, Bill Murray is caught in a scenario where he is reliving the same day over and over again, but there's no explanation as to exactly how that came about or what the mechanism is that drives that. And it's the same thing with Ruby Sparks. There's no explanation as to why this fictional person suddenly is there in his life for real. You would think that he was just off his rocker, but everyone else sees her as well, so obviously she's a real person. Anyway, since there's no explanation for how that happened, that sort of reminded me of Groundhog Day, because there's, it's just dealing with the situation, not worrying about how it came out, really. Oh, and I also saw a movie called The Dark Knight Rises, which some of you may have heard of. I don't know, it's a little more obscure. But I've got a review for that on my main channel, and also I've got a contest for a DVD prize if you're interested in participating in that. So the video for that is in the description below if you'd like to check it out. And like I said, there might be some changes coming to this collab channel soon. Big Al 1982, our fearless leader, will probably end up explaining some of that in his next video, which could be tomorrow. So we'll see about that. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye.